My wife of 20 years had been acting differently lately, and I had noticed a shift in myself as well. Over the last year, I found myself taking on all the household responsibilities, and surprisingly, I found genuine joy in it. There was something satisfying about seeing the house sparkling clean or receiving compliments about a meal or a well-set dinner table. I took pride in these small things and went out of my way to ensure everything was perfect for my wife when she returned home from work. I'd meet her at the door with a drink, letting her unwind before dinner without the stress of her day. The warmth of her smile, her hug, and the occasional kiss made it all worth it. There was a change in our intimacy too, but not in a way I had expected. I found new fulfillment in pleasing her, and I loved the way she responded. She seemed to enjoy it more than before, and that made me happy too. Our relationship had been evolving in such a subtle way that I couldn't pinpoint when it started, but neither of us seemed bothered by it. I continued running my computer consulting business, which was doing incredibly well. Most of the money I earned from it went into an old personal account that I had before marrying Victoria. Since I transferred a portion to our joint account, it didn't cause any issues. Victoria, a successful lawyer, was also thriving, and together we lived comfortably. We had a healthy lifestyle, worked out at the gym, and traveled regularly to exotic places. However, I noticed some changes in myself that were hard to ignore. I had trouble in the bedroom, and much to my dismay, I couldn't maintain an excitement. As I neared 40, I figured it was just part of getting older, but I wasn't prepared for what I found during a shower one day. While I was washing up, I noticed that my chest had become unexpectedly sensitive. After rinsing off, I discovered the beginnings of what looked like chests. Yes, actual chests. I was in shock. My scream brought Victoria rushing into the bathroom, clearly alarmed. "What is it?" "What's wrong?" she asked, scanning the room. "Victoria!" I cried, pointing to my chest, tears welling up. "Oh, David, calm down. It's normal for men to experience that as they age," she said dismissively. "It's not the end of the world." I was shocked but somewhat reassured. "Will they go away?" I asked. "Probably not," she replied with a chuckle. "But I think you look quite cute with them," she added, gently touching them. Her touch sent a rush of unexpected sensations through me, and I felt an intense reaction. I couldn't believe how powerful the feeling was. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I looked up at her, still reeling from the sensation, and asked, "Is that what you feel when I touch you?" "David, I'm glad you've had your first experience with a new kind of pleasure. Don't worry, there'll be more. Just wait until someone else catches your attention and takes things to a whole new level." "Wait, what?" "Victoria, I'd never let another man touch me." No, that's disgusting." "Why would you even say that?" "Sweetheart, I've noticed something. You can't even get excited anymore, and the way you show affection to me, it feels more like how a woman might. I've never brought it up before because I didn't want to embarrass you, but it's become pretty clear that you've changed. While I love you deeply, I really need a man in my life. So, would you mind moving your things to the guest bedroom?" "Victoria, are you serious? You really want me to leave so you can be with someone else just because I've been struggling with this issue?" "David, don't you think I deserve some proper physical affection? Since you can't provide that for me, shouldn't I be allowed to seek it elsewhere? I don't want to hurt you, but I need more. Honestly, I don't even know if you have anything left to offer as a man. I'm sorry, but love as we've known it doesn't feel right anymore. I can't keep going like this. Please, understand. I need a change." The weight of her words hit me hard, and tears started streaming down my face. I felt utterly defeated as I slowly turned to move my things to the guest room. It was clear to me now, she had already emotionally checked out, and I was just a part of her past. The last 20 years seemed to have meant nothing to her, and I was left with nothing but the painful realization that I was no longer a part of her future. It was heartbreaking. While packing the last of my belongings, I came across a picture of me and a client, Rebecca, at a restaurant. I vaguely remembered the moment. Rebecca had just signed a significant contract with my company, and in the excitement, I had kissed her hand. The photo seemed innocent enough, but I could tell that Victoria might have seen it differently. There were other photos too, ones that could easily give the wrong impression. I found 20 more of me with Rebecca, all seemingly friendly. This raised a lot of questions. Why did Victoria keep these pictures? What was going on? I decided I needed to get to the bottom of this, so I gathered all the photos, locked the door to my new room, and set a chair under the doorknob for extra security. I then called Rebecca, leaving her a message, asking her to call me back as soon as possible. 3 hours later, my phone rang, and it was Rebecca. "Rebecca, thank God you called back. There's something urgent going on, and I think we should meet somewhere private." I reassured her that this wasn't some attempt to get closer. "Rebecca, I'm sorry, but I want to make it clear that you're not my type. While I value our business relationship, I only see you as a friend. This meeting is important, and I really need to talk to you." I heard Rebecca chuckle and reassure me that her ego would survive, and she'd meet me at Black's Bistro in about 20 minutes. I quickly threw on the most casual outfit I could get away with for the place and headed out to meet her, completely unaware that several pairs of eyes were following my every move. 30 minutes later, I was sitting in a booth with Rebecca, as far from prying eyes as we could manage. "Thanks for meeting me, Rebecca. I think someone is trying to blackmail both of us, and I thought you might want to get a handle on it before things get out of control," I said, showing her the photos I'd found. I explained where I'd found them and shared the recent events with Victoria, wondering if they were somehow connected. Maybe it was paranoid, but when you feel like you're being set up, it's hard not to think that way, right? Rebecca went through the pictures, agreeing that while they depicted innocent moments, they could easily be misinterpreted and cause embarrassment for both of us. What we couldn't understand was why Victoria had kept these pictures in her nightstand. Things were starting to get strange. Then, out of nowhere, someone approached our table, snapped a few photos with a blinding flash, and quickly disappeared. "What the hell was that?" Rebecca shouted. "Jesus, Rebecca, we've been set up. I don't know by who or why, but I have a feeling we'll find out soon. And I just can't shake the idea that my wife might be involved in this somehow," I admitted to her. "You know, David, you might be onto something," Rebecca said carefully. "And, I hate to tell you this, but you're looking, well, a little more feminine these days. I barely recognized you when we met tonight. If you hadn't taken the lead, I don't think I would have known it was you. How long has this been going on?" "I'm not sure, Rebecca," I replied, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. "Things are really confusing right now, but I think we need to take control of this situation, if we can." Rebecca smiled warmly, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Don't worry, love, they're messing with the wrong people. Let me hold on to these photos for a while so I can figure out when, where, and how they were taken. You go back home like nothing's happened, and let me handle this. Oh, and don't freak out if you see me at your place in the next few days. I need to talk to your wife and see if she lets anything slip about these pictures. Maybe I can get her to reveal something. Don't worry, I'll keep you safe. Keep the faith." I couldn't help but chuckle at her upbeat attitude, gave her a quick hug, kissed her cheek, paid the bill, and headed home. Or, at least, what was left of home. I knew I would need to contact my lawyer and start the divorce process as soon as possible. If my wife didn't love me anymore, I didn't see any reason to keep supporting her, especially when this was my house. It had been passed down to me by my grandparents, and Victoria might not remember, but she had signed a document that stated she had no claim to the house because it was a family heirloom that couldn't be sold. The house would never be considered communal property in a divorce, thanks to that document, and I had the original safely stored in my bank safe deposit box. So, goodbye to 20 years of my life. I couldn't believe how unfair everything felt, and I cried myself into a restless sleep that was filled with dark, unsettling nightmares. It was the worst night I could remember. After tossing and turning all night, I decided to draw myself a hot bath to relax. I added bath beads and lavender salts to the water, creating a mountain of sweet-smelling suds. As I sank into the warmth, I let out a sigh of relief, feeling the heat work on my sore back and shoulders. The calming scent of the bath products helped me unwind, and for the first time in days, I felt like myself again. As I looked down at my body, I was taken aback to see 2 points rising out of the water. They reminded me of when Victoria and I used to bathe together early in our marriage. Back then, I would playfully tease her, smothering her with kisses and affection. Now, here I was, staring at my own body, noticing these changes. I couldn't ignore the fact that I was turning into something I didn't recognize. What worried me most was that I didn't feel repulsed by it. In fact, it almost felt like a new beginning, something that wasn't as catastrophic as I had imagined. Tears welled up in my eyes once more. I was completely alone, and the weight of it all hit me hard. The thought of escaping it all crossed my mind, but I quickly pushed it away. I couldn't go down that road. I hated pain, and I knew I wouldn't have the courage to follow through. I had always been someone who tried to avoid pain at all costs, and I was sure this might one day be my downfall, but at that moment, I knew no one actually meant me harm. I had lived by the belief that treating others as you wanted to be treated would keep you safe, and I hoped that was true. Eventually, I managed to drag myself out of the bath. I dried off and dusted myself with some powder I found on the counter, then started to get dressed. As I inhaled the soft scent of the powder and felt the smoothness of my skin, I shrugged it off. If it felt good, why not embrace it? Another step, another brick in the wall. I had just finished putting on a pair of Bermuda shorts and a polo shirt when I heard a knock on the door. I opened it to find Victoria standing there, looking like she had just tasted something sour. "Well, don't you smell nice?" she remarked. "Did you enjoy your bath?" "Yes, thank you, Victoria." "What brings you here this morning?" "Well, Isabel, I think that's such a sweet name for you, don't you agree? Anyway, I was wondering if you found any photos of you and a woman last night while you were moving things around. If you did, I'd really like to have them back. They remind me of when you were man enough to cheat on me. You know, even with all the money I spent on private detectives, they never figured out who she was. So, since that's clearly never going to happen again now, maybe you could tell me who it was you found more interesting than me?" "Good God, Victoria! Is that what you thought? That I cheated on you? Never. Not in a million years. Especially not with Rebecca. She's married, and the chairperson of one of the largest multinational companies in the world. We both would have been ruined by the press if anything happened." "Wait a minute. Are you saying that's why I've been changing lately? What have you done?" "Oh, spare me the 'I'm innocent' act. I have photographic proof, you bastard. And yes, I am responsible for this change in you. There's no turning back now. You've got enough hormones in you to push 30 teenagers through puberty. Look at yourself. You can't weigh more than 90 pounds soaking wet, and how tall are you? Maybe 5'4"? You've always had a pretty face and a body just waiting to change. All you need now is a female part down there, and you'd be there. How's that for a cheater? Victoria, I never cheated on you. Rebecca is just a business acquaintance. We hardly know each other on a personal level." "Oh, how naive. I know you saw her yesterday at that restaurant. I even have pictures to prove it." Of course, Victoria, I had to show her the pictures and warn her that someone might be trying to blackmail us. She was really interested and reassured me not to worry because she was going to figure everything out. Honestly, knowing her business savvy, I feel sorry for whoever tries to mess with her. She'll have them for breakfast. I can't wait to see how this unfolds. But Victoria, what really bothered us was what you were doing with those photos and why they were taken. I don't think I've ever seen Rebecca so angry. I remember once when she lost a deal because of a betrayal from someone in her company. Trust me, it wasn't pretty. Let's just say they found most of him in the bay, but bits and pieces were scattered in every restaurant he owned or visited. It was pretty gruesome. I'd never want to be on her bad side. Then again, I've always treated my business associates with respect and honesty. You know that about me. Why would you ever think I would cheat on you? I loved you more than anything. What do you mean, loved? Why are you talking in the past tense? Well, Victoria, do you really have to ask? You admitted to feminizing me because you thought I was cheating on you. You never even asked me about it. Why is that? We've always talked openly and honestly about everything, but now all of a sudden you don't want to communicate with me. Why? Did you think I could show you how wrong you were and make you see the damage you caused? It's pathetic, Victoria. Really pathetic. I want those photos, Isabel, and I want them now. I'm sorry, Victoria, but I don't have them anymore. I gave them to Rebecca so she could find out where they came from and who took them. I feel sorry for the poor soul when she tracks them down. What? Victoria screamed, then ran downstairs. I heard the front door slam, followed by the sound of her car speeding away down the driveway. I went to the kitchen, prepared a light meal, washed the dishes, and cleaned up before heading to the den to call Rebecca. Hey, Rebecca. How's everything? I just had an interesting conversation with my soon-to-be ex-wife. She completely flipped out when I told her I gave the photos to you. She seemed to think I still had them. Honestly, I'm glad I gave them to you. I didn't like the look in her eyes. She believes that you and I were more than just business acquaintances, and that I cheated on her, which is why she did all of this to me. She even admitted it and said it doesn't matter now, because I'm fully cooked now, whatever that means. Can you imagine? What a twisted mind to do that to me. But here's the thing, I think I'm actually starting to like it. I think I might enjoy being a woman, as long as I get to live long enough to experience it. Oh, David, I'm so sorry. I feel like it's partly my fault, being in those pictures with you. I know it's silly, but I feel bad anyway. Let me know if you need anything, okay? I'll be there to help, no matter what. Thank you, Rebecca. It really means a lot to me that you're there. Well, I should let you get back to your detective work, and I need to call my lawyer to get the divorce process started. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Wait, David, you're calling your lawyer now? Shouldn't you wait until you know more? No, Rebecca, I don't think I need to. Victoria basically told me she hates me and is glad she turned me into a woman. So, I guess you could say our marriage is pretty much over, I said with a dry laugh. Oh, poor David. I'm so sorry. Be extra careful around that wife of yours. Always make sure you have 2 exits for safety, okay? Good advice, Rebecca. And by the way, my ex came up with a new name for me, and I kind of like it. My new fem name is Isabel. Cute, huh? Take care, talk to you later, bye. I hung up the phone and immediately called my lawyer. After explaining everything, I found myself having to explain my current situation twice. He reassured me that not only would he start the divorce proceedings, but he'd also apply for a restraining order to keep Victoria away from me and the house. That sounded perfect to me, so I asked him to get started on it as soon as possible. He also said he'd arrange for a name change and make sure my documents reflected my new identity. I was relieved. He was a good friend and a competent lawyer, and I knew I could count on him to follow through. I felt better knowing things were starting to move in the right direction. With everything handled, I had a lot of energy to burn, so I decided to clean the house from top to bottom. While I was in the basement, I came across a locked door leading to a room I hadn't seen before. There were no windows or peepholes. I briefly considered breaking the door down but then thought it best to ask Victoria about it. After all, she had already laid everything out, and since I couldn't convince her that I hadn't done anything wrong, we were at an impasse. Until we went our separate ways, we'd have to tolerate each other. I did, however, find a key that fit the lock. But before I could do anything with it, I heard noises upstairs, so I quickly hid the key and went up to see who was there. It was Victoria with a man. He was huge. I figured he was the one who would be satisfying her now, and I almost wished him luck. If he didn't meet her standards, he could end up like me. I couldn't help but chuckle, and they both turned around to see me standing there. "So, what's so funny, you little pansy?" the man sneered. I immediately lost all sympathy and thought, well, let's see how you handle it when she gets tired of you. "I was just imagining what you'd look like when Ms. Victoria here gets bored with you," I said with a giggle. "And those hairy legs, yikes." "Isabel, that's enough." Victoria snapped, though I noticed her lip twitching as if she was trying to hide a smile. For some reason, I was feeling good about everything. It seemed like it was all about to be over, so I decided to have a little fun. I put a finger to my chin, curtsied to Victoria, and said, "Of course, madam. My apologies for the outburst. Would you and your friend like a drink?" "Why, thank you, Isabel." "That would be lovely." "Bruce, what would you like to drink?" A scotch and 7, please," Bruce replied. "I'll have my usual, please, Isabel." I curtsied again. "Right away, madam." Feeling even more mischievous, I found some Seconal in the medicine cabinet, ground up 6 pills, and added them to Bruce's drink. Oops, I was definitely a bad girl. I carried the drinks into the den, placed them on the sideboard, and informed them where they were before heading up to my room. I could hardly wait. He. Half an hour later, I went back down to the den and couldn't help but laugh. There was Victoria, pinned down by a completely unclothed Bruce, who was snoring heavily. He must have weighed around 300 pounds, and there was no way Victoria could move him or get any leverage. It was a perfect moment, and I ran upstairs to grab my digital camera. Back in the den, I found a good angle, set up the camera to record, and then walked in like I had just arrived. I let out a shocked gasp, and as soon as I saw the two of them, I couldn't hold it in anymore and burst out laughing. The more Victoria tried to hide, the louder and harder I laughed. It was absolutely priceless. "Well, my dear ex-wife, looks like you've picked a real winner to replace me. He makes a great blanket, doesn't he?" "Get him off me," Victoria whispered. "What was that?" "Please, get him off me. I can't breathe." "Gee, I don't know. You're the one who did this to me for no reason other than your need for control. You knew I never cheated on you. That was just an excuse to feminize me and humiliate me by bringing men home. So, why should I help you? You bitch. Get me out of this." Victoria snapped. "I'm a bitch? Well, okay. But you made me this way, so now you'll have to deal with me," I said, grinning. "Oh, please, Isabel. Get me out of here and I'll owe you one. Please, I feel faint." "Oh, great. I just know I'll regret this," I muttered to myself. "You're going to owe me more than one, sweetie." With that, I grabbed hold of Bruce and pulled with all my strength. Slowly, oh so slowly, he moved, and Victoria was able to help. Poor Bruce ended up flying to the floor with a satisfying thud. I looked down at Victoria and smirked. "Nice one." He really went flying there, but that landing, not so great. Victoria actually smiled up at me for that one. I went to gather my camera and headed back upstairs to my room. After locking the door and securing it with a chair under the doorknob for extra security, I downloaded the video I had just made and sent a copy to Rebecca. I knew she'd find it hilarious. Yes, I know, I'm a bit of a troublemaker, but it was just so much fun. You never know when your number's up, so you have to enjoy things while you can. Feeling a bit worn out, I decided to lie down for a while. As I placed my head on the pillow, I heard a strange sound, a mix of buzzing and hissing. It reminded me of a snake on drugs, and I giggled. Then I giggled again at the fact that I was actually giggling. I was really getting into this girl persona. I wasn't worried about becoming a woman anymore. In fact, I was waiting for it all to be over so I could fully embrace my new life. I looked under my pillow, expecting to find nothing, but as I was replacing it, something shifted inside. I reached inside the pillowcase and found an odd object. It looked like a small transistor radio, remember those? I held it up to my right ear, which I thought was my best and cutest ear. Another giggle escaped me. I loved it. I was allowed, no, expected to be silly now, and I was reveling in it. I almost went to thank Victoria for turning me into a woman, but thankfully, a blast of reason hit me, and I refocused on the object. Wait a minute. How fast does hair grow? I had to check on that. And my fingernails too, mine were beautifully shaped and reached about half an inch past my fingers. I hadn't noticed any issues with either, so I just let it go. No problem, no worry, simple as that. I was definitely a simple girl now. Wait, that didn't come out right. I'm not simple, I have a PhD and an MBA. What is going on here? Oh my God! I realized with horror that I might be getting brainwashed somehow. I looked suspiciously at the thing in my hand, then smashed it onto the floor. Watching it explode in a shower of pieces gave me some small satisfaction. Oh crap, that was stupid. How would I know what it was saying now? Well, duh, Isabel. I thought to myself. Just let it finish the job, then figure it out. It was spontaneous but probably the right move. I'd find the transmitter and figure out what was being pumped into my brain. I imagined that device was responsible for helping me slip into this new persona. It likely taught me how to dress, use makeup, and all the little details that made me perfect. I suspected that once it had made me mentally into a woman, it would have been used to make me more subservient, probably to Victoria. Oh, when this was all over, I would be sure to give her a piece of my mind. And I'd make sure she paid the price for everything she did. Ha! It was clear I was back to my usual self, no longer thinking like a bimbo. My brain was still working just fine. So, I made a list of things to do tomorrow: slap my ex-wife, find the transmitter, check the master bedroom and attic. I wasn't sure how far it could transmit, but from the size of the receiver, it couldn't be much. That was about it for tomorrow. I didn't want to overdo it. Besides, I had laundry to do and the silverware was a mess. I know, I didn't have to do any of that anymore, but I wanted to. I enjoyed it, it made me feel good and useful. I liked those feelings, and I always had, even when I was a man. Being a woman didn't change that, except now I could do it without hearing anyone comment on how sweet I was for doing it for my husband. Ugh, those people were everywhere, making life miserable for those of us who were more thoughtful and gentle. I must have drifted off for a bit, as the clock radio was blaring music from the 80s and it was already dark outside. However, I felt refreshed and ready to take on the world. I quickly jumped in the shower, being careful not to wet my hair. After all, it would take hours to dry my beautiful locks. As I checked myself for any places that needed shaving, I was surprised to find that I didn't need to shave anywhere. Something about that felt off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I tried to remember the last couple of months, but nothing seemed out of place. I couldn't recall any procedures like electrolysis, chest implants, or even how my ears got pierced. My hair and nails seemed professionally done, but I couldn't remember going to a salon or anything like that. It was all so strange because, clearly, these things had happened. Maybe my mind had simply been blocked from remembering it, perhaps the brainwashing process had worked to make me overlook these details. I had been absent-mindedly rubbing my body as I thought about all this. Suddenly, I shot upright, realizing what I had been doing. I quickly removed my clothes and stood in front of the full-length mirror on my closet door to see myself for the first time. I was breathtaking. My hair cascaded down to my lower back, perfectly styled. I had a figure to envy, with 36C chests, a flawless 36-21-36 body, and a face that seemed sculpted by the gods. I looked down at my body and I couldn't believe it, there it was. my female organ. It was real. I hesitated for a moment before touching my body. The sensation was overwhelming. As I explored further, my body responded in ways that were both foreign and exciting. My stomach warmed, and I became wet. Truly, everything about this felt real. I was in awe of it all. How could this even be possible? There were no logical explanations, but I couldn't deny how much I loved it. Here I was, a man just days, weeks, or months ago, and now I was a woman. A miracle had taken place, and I wasn't about to question it. Looking at my reflection, I noticed that I looked a lot like my mother, and a bit like my sister. And I couldn't have been older than 21. This was incredible. It was like living a dream that I never wanted to wake up from. Then, a knock on the door interrupted my reverie. I froze. The knock came again, and I asked, "Who is it?" My voice, wow, it sounded so angelic. "It's me, Victoria. Can we talk?" "We need to talk, Isabel." This wasn't a dream. I couldn't believe it. I laughed out loud with joy, then quickly realized Victoria had no idea why I was so happy. "Sorry, Victoria," I said. "I just heard the funniest thing on the radio." "What do you think we need to talk about?" "What happened to your voice?" she asked. "I'm not sure, Victoria, but isn't it wonderful?" I replied, smiling. "Sure, I guess." "Listen, Isabel, I'm having a little get-together tonight, but the caterers can't stay to serve, and this is really important for my career. So, I'm asking if you could please be the maid for the evening. I know there's no love lost between us, and I know you blame me for your gender situation, but I really need your help. I feel like I did you a favor by helping you embrace your true self. You're perfect now, you're a happier person. Don't you realize that? You've blossomed into this amazing woman, and I know that wasn't my intention at first. I wanted to make you as miserable as I was, but instead, you've become this gorgeous, vivacious female. I realize now how wrong I was. You couldn't have cheated on me, and I see how foolish I've been, but it's too late. You've transformed, and you're incredible. So, if you agree to help me tonight, I'll be your maid whenever you need me. How about that? Quid pro quo. I know what you're all thinking, don't trust her. I would normally agree, too. I knew Victoria was a lawyer with a silver tongue, capable of convincing anyone to see things her way. There was no reason to trust her, but that's exactly why I did. Please, give me a couple of minutes to think about it, Victoria. Okay? Oh, sure, Isabel. I'll be in the den. I got dressed, but promised myself I would continue exploring later. Going downstairs was a bit daunting. I had no idea who would be there or what the atmosphere would be like. I was taking a risk, but I hoped they needed me enough to set aside any lingering issues. Hopefully not in a violent way. I reached the den, poked my head in cautiously, and felt a wave of relief when I saw only Victoria. I walked the rest of the way in and told her I was ready to help if she still needed me to play the maid. "You're an incredible person," Victoria exclaimed. "I've made you my public enemy #1, yet you're willing to leave your room and come to my aid. I feel my affection for you growing exponentially, but I know that forgiveness from you will be a huge hurdle for me. I hope, one day, you can find it in your heart to forgive me, as I'd love to become your very best friend. I can't thank you enough, Isabel." "Oh, I'm so rude, Isabel, that's what I called you. Do you have another name you prefer?" "Actually, no, Victoria, I really like Isabel. It suits me, and I couldn't think of a better name." "Oh, that's wonderful. Come on, let me show you the uniform you'll wear tonight. I hope you like it, it's quite sexy, and I think it should spark a few reactions. You know how lawyers are." She led me to her office, where she had laid out a dream French-made uniform on the sofa, complete with a white satin corset and what appeared to be real silk undergarments. I thought to myself, this could be fun. Who hasn't fantasized about being a French maid? Oh my goodness, Victoria, this is adorable, I said. I think I'm going to enjoy being the maid tonight. We might even fulfill a few more fantasies this evening. I'll need your help getting into the corset though. Of course, Isabel. It would be my pleasure. With Victoria's help, I managed to get the corset on, adjusting it around my torso and fastening the busk. As she tightened the laces, I was surprised at how comfortable it felt. It wasn't as restrictive as I had imagined, and with my tiny waist, it only brought it down by a couple of inches. The sensation was incredible, and I couldn't help but feel a rush of satisfaction. I looked in the mirror and couldn't believe how sexy I looked. As Victoria added the other pieces of the uniform, I became more and more alluring. I had to struggle to keep my thoughts in check as I admired myself. Victoria, too, was finding it hard to keep her hands to herself. Soon enough, I was dressed and looked every bit the French maid. I turned to Victoria and, putting on my best French accent, said, "Is there anything else, mademoiselle?" "No, I think that will be all, Fifi," Victoria replied. I curtsied. "Thank you, madam. I'll be in the kitchen until your guests arrive, and then I will assist them until supper time. By your leave?" I curtsied again and headed for the kitchen, my mind racing with excitement. This uniform was too sexy, and I loved it. I was already thinking of getting one for myself for those dreary nights when a little fun was needed. In the kitchen, I checked on the food, it was all perfect. Victoria was certainly going to make a great impression on her guests. I wished her luck, then paused. Did I really mean that? Yes, I did. It seemed I had forgiven her for everything she'd put me through. In fact, I found myself enjoying the end result. Who knew? I silently scolded myself. I loved the outcome, the transformation. Even I hadn't realized how much I secretly desired to be a woman. And now here I was, fully embracing it, feeling better than I ever had before. I felt like I was floating on air. Looking at the clock, I saw Victoria's guests should be arriving soon, so I sashayed out to the foyer to greet them. The doorbell rang, and I opened it, ready to welcome them in. The bright daylight outside made it a little hard to see who was standing at the door, but I was shocked to see my lawyer and his wife. I looked at him, confused, but he didn't recognize me. I took their jackets and showed them inside, leaving them with Victoria and returning to the door for the next guests. About an hour later, everyone had arrived, and I rushed back to the kitchen to check on the meal. But to my surprise, there was a full kitchen staff now. Where had they come from? The head chef turned to me and asked if the guests had arrived. When I confirmed, he directed me to the living room to serve drinks and keep the guests entertained. This seemed odd, but I went with it and started taking drink orders from the guests. Was it just me, or did no one seem to recognize who I was? It was starting to feel really strange, but I didn't have time to figure it out just then. Eventually, I managed to pull my lawyer aside, away from the crowd, where no one could see us. It seemed he misunderstood my intentions for getting him alone, as he immediately grabbed my backside and kissed me passionately. I pulled away sharply and hissed for him to stop. He looked confused, saying, "I was told the maid was very accommodating." I asked him who had told him that, and when he mentioned the hostess, things began to click. Victoria wasn't quite done messing with my head. I told him who I was, and then spent the next 10 minutes trying to convince him. Eventually, he gasped, "My God, David, is that really you? Oh God, I kissed you." He spat, clearly horrified. "Hey, come on, it's not that bad. I've been told I'm actually pretty good at kissing." I teased him. "Take a real close look, Ethan. I'm completely a woman now." This started about a year ago when Victoria slowly feminized me without me even realizing it. Pretty embarrassing, huh? I don't mind it now, though. I'm having the time of my life. The only embarrassing part is that no one caught on to what Victoria was doing. So, tell me, Ethan, what are you and your wife doing here tonight? I didn't think you and Victoria were friends. And why haven't you served her the divorce papers yet? I'm counting on you to be on my side, but if you're with Victoria, that's a conflict of interest, and I'll have to ask you to step down as my lawyer. So, what's it going to be, Ethan? David, I'm shocked to hear you say that. We've been best friends for almost 30 years. You should know I'm always in your corner, as a friend first and your attorney second, with your best interests at heart. As for being here, we were invited to this event because Victoria wanted all of her and David's friends under one roof for a special announcement. Whatever it is, Victoria is keeping it close to the chest, and I don't think anyone knows what's going on. Besides, I couldn't pass up the chance to deliver this to your ex-wife. He held up the divorce papers, and I couldn't help but laugh, pulling him into a big hug and kissing him on the cheek. I don't know why, but it felt like the right thing to do in that moment. Of course, his wife didn't think so. She appeared just in time to see me kiss him. With no hesitation, she walked up to me and slapped me hard across the face. The force of it sent me into the wall, momentarily stunned. As I was regaining my bearings, Ethan tried to explain the situation to Angelique. By the time I was at least 90% back to normal, Ethan had convinced his wife of two things: 1, that I was really David, and 2, that the kiss and hug were entirely innocent. I chimed in and assured her that there was no romantic connection between me and her husband, apologizing for making her think otherwise. That seemed to do the trick, and she forgave us. But then, she got straight to the point, asking what was really going on and what the true reason for this party was. She had a gut feeling that Victoria was showcasing me at every opportunity and making it clear, albeit subtly, that I was available for more than just drink service and that anyone could ask if they wanted more. That bitch! I exclaimed. What more can she do to me that she hasn't already? Well, Angelique said, she could really embarrass you in front of your bosses and coworkers by getting you to unknowingly sleep with someone and then letting everyone know who you really are. Not only would she ruin you, but anyone who got dragged into her disgusting plans would be ruined too. There's nothing quite like a scandalous act to destroy a career. But Angelique, she couldn't do that. I could sleep with anyone here tonight, and they would be with a real woman. I know it's hard to believe, but somewhere through all of her deceit and manipulation, a miracle happened, and I'm a real woman now. I always have been. I showed her my most feminine feature, and then I noticed Ethan, who had fainted and hit the floor. Angelique and I looked at each other, then burst into laughter. We quickly knelt down, gently slapping Ethan's cheeks until he started to come around. I can't believe you showed that in public. God, Isabel, don't you have any shame? Ethan muttered, still dazed. Apparently not, Ethan, I teased, grinning. I didn't even think what I did was wrong. I was just showing your wife, after all. What were you looking at? God, what a pervert! Is he always this perverted, Angelique? Perverted? Me? I don't think so. I just have a healthy, curious mind. Thank you very much, Ethan replied, now fully conscious and a little embarrassed. I'm sorry, Ethan, I said, laughing. I shouldn't tease you, but I've got this mischievous sense of humor, and I'll do the oddest things for a laugh. I promise you, being around me will never be dull. We all shared a good laugh, and I could see Ethan and Angelique enjoying it too. Well, I sighed, on with the show, I suppose. What should we do next? You could go in there and tell them what a great piece of ass I am, and Angelique could back you up by saying that I'm great at satisfying women and men alike. Do you think that would get everyone in there riled up, or would it be too much and raise suspicion? I admit, I don't have much experience in subterfuge. I guess that's one of the things I've always liked about you, David. You're as honest as the day is long, and I hope you never change. Ethan said with a grin. I promise, I said, giving both of them a big hug, feeling tears well up in my eyes. So, should I go back in there, serve some drinks, and wait for Victoria to spring her trap? We both know her trap doesn't have any bite anymore. Yes, that's a great idea. We'll mingle and try to figure out who else here is in the loop, while you go be the French maid. By the way, you make an excellent maid, and if you ever need to make a little extra money, Angelique and I could hire you for a few parties. Ethan suggested with a grin. His wife, however, didn't seem to like that suggestion, and she immediately slapped him on the arm. Ow! What was that for? I was being completely upfront. Can you imagine how successful our parties would be if Isabelle was there doing the French maid? People would pay to come. Ethan ducked as Angelique swung again, and he laughed as he hurried back to the party, with his wife following hot on his heels. Back in the party, I resumed my duties as the French maid, and the drinks started flowing freely again. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, but I still wasn't sure what Victoria had planned. When I had a moment, I dashed upstairs to my room, pulled out my purse, and rifled through it to see if I had any ID. If this transformation had been real, I should have some form of identification with my new name on it. I hit the jackpot when I found a small change purse with plastic sleeves for cards. Inside, I found a Visa, MasterCard, library card, driver's license, and a social security card, all under the name Isabelle Leanne Reynolds. I couldn't believe it. I was real. This would certainly put a stop to any plans Victoria had. But I couldn't understand why she was still going out of her way to hurt me. She had already removed me from her life. Why keep going? I must have been missing something. Victoria had it all, her great job, a live-in housekeeper, a steady routine, and someone who would do anything for her. Why would she destroy all of that? Maybe it was simple, Victoria was crazy. Well, the night wasn't over yet, and I was curious about what Victoria had up her sleeve. I went back downstairs, continued serving drinks, and dodged some unwanted advances. Then, out of nowhere, Victoria approached me, and I thought, here it comes. Isabelle, I must thank you for doing such a great job tonight. All my friends think you're wonderful. In fact, a few of them have proposed that you work some of their parties. Would you be interested in that? Victoria said, speaking to me as if I were a child. You could make some good money, and it wouldn't be too difficult for you to pick up, she added. A light bulb went off in my head as I realized what she was implying. She thought that little device had turned me into a crazed bimbo, someone who would jump at the chance. Well, let's see what her reaction would be if I played along, if I acted like the sexy, clueless bimbo she thought I had become. Oh, madam, I said, feigning excitement. Could I really? That would be so exciting. Some of your friends are so attractive. I would just love to, work them over, work for them. Oh yes, I'd really enjoy that. I made sure to stare at the men's crotches and lick my lips, letting my bimbo persona shine. Victoria's smile stretched wide as she thought she had me right where she wanted me. She motioned to one particular group of men, and I could see their reactions. Suddenly, their pants seemed a little tighter, and I noticed them noticing me. Without thinking, I licked my lips again. Get a grip, I mentally scolded myself. You're not promiscuous, you're a French maid. Ha! Just kidding, dear readers. I thought I had played my role pretty well when, just as I was about to say something else, Victoria clinked her glass with a spoon to grab everyone's attention. The room quieted down, and I realized this was it, whatever Victoria had been planning was about to unfold. I quickly grabbed my ID to make short work of any plans she had. If she pushed me too far, I was ready to put an end to it. I sidled up to the group of men who were hoping to turn me into their personal bimbo maid, and I made sure they knew exactly what I thought of them, offering some colorful phrases and commentary on their parentage. Their jaws hit the floor as I walked away. How could a little bimbo like me have learned such a vast vocabulary of insults? I was sure the guests were still reeling from the tongue lashing I had given them, and frankly, I felt they deserved it. Meanwhile, Victoria had everyone's attention and began speaking. Thank you all for being here tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the food, drinks, and company. I also want to thank my husband for making this evening a success. He's tirelessly served food, ensured everyone had enough to drink, and, I'm sure, many of you sampled his other wares throughout the evening. I understand he gives the best head in the state. Please join me in thanking him for a truly enjoyable night. I'm sure she turned to introduce me, but by then, I wasn't there. I was in the master bedroom with Ethan and Angelique, waiting for the fallout and laughing. Victoria had backed herself into a corner that no one else could have done so easily. But she did it effortlessly, and I wanted her to savor her moment of glory. I reluctantly took off the French-made uniform, though Ethan promised I could wear it any time at his place. That earned him another playful punch in the arm. He was going to be sore in the morning. I was getting dressed again in a sheer little number that left nothing to the imagination. The blouse was so thin that my bra, or lack thereof, was visible, and my chests were on full display, along with my prominent pointers. My capri pants clung tightly to my form, outlining every curve, and I knew that if I got any hotter, it would be clear what was beneath. I was ready to confront Victoria, and I was taking this very seriously. She had tried to destroy me, and now, I was taking no prisoners. Ethan and Angelique gave me a thumbs up and told me to rock it, girl. They would stay upstairs in case I needed backup or to expose Victoria's plans. I went downstairs, feeling every pair of eyes on me. I was sure some of the men were already, well, let's just say, they seemed interested. I walked up to Victoria and, with a cultured tone, asked, "Is there anything else you need from me tonight? If not, may I get my check and leave?" Victoria sputtered for a moment, trying to regain control. Here he is now. "Well, David, you've certainly made an impression tonight. How do you feel about that?" I looked at her, raising an eyebrow as if she'd just crawled out from under a rock, and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Madam, I'm afraid I have no idea what you're talking about. You really should clarify any changes in my services." My apologies, everyone, I was just hired to cater this party. If anyone here had any mistaken ideas about my availability, I assure you, I hold the highest morals. I wouldn't have worked here tonight if I knew what your hostess had in mind. Rest assured, I will be informing the proper authorities about the degradation she intended for me, something that I'm sure makes sense only to her. As you can see, I'm not the David she's trying to present to you. I have all the identification to prove who I am if anyone wishes to see it. The guests were intrigued, and a couple of them came over to apologize for Victoria's behavior. They asked to see the proof, and I showed them all my documentation. They were satisfied, and after giving Victoria a look that could have withered her on the spot, they thanked me for a wonderful evening and left. I almost felt sorry for Victoria, but she was too busy trying to salvage her dignity by making a scene with each departing group. She only made herself look more foolish. Finally, she had no choice but to write me a check for $1,100. To add insult to injury, one of the high-end lawyers in the crowd offered to cash the check for me, then pulled out $1,100 from a wallet that looked to have at least 4 times that amount inside. I signed the check, and when Victoria tried one last time to question the signature, I produced 2 cards with matching signatures. With that, she slunk away, and the rest of the guests left, each thanking me for a lovely evening as I handed them their coats and wished them a safe journey home. The house eventually grew quiet, and I couldn't find Victoria anywhere. I went upstairs to find Ethan and Angelique still in the master bedroom. I decided to leave them to their privacy and went to my own room. After locking the door, I placed a chair under the doorknob for extra security. At least I could sleep peacefully knowing there was an insane person somewhere in the house. After a long, peaceful sleep, I woke up feeling fully recharged and ready to face the last, most unpleasant hurdle. Victoria had to be neutralized and, hopefully, sent somewhere where she could receive the proper therapy to restore some semblance of sanity. Honestly, I didn't hold out much hope for that. I had lived with her recently, seen the crazy things she'd done, and knew firsthand what she was still capable of. Let's be honest, your average psychopath would have been horrified by Victoria's actions without a second thought. Her total lack of conscience terrified me. Her veneer of civilized behavior was paper-thin at best. Lose the ability to feel guilt and the fear of consequences, and you have someone like Victoria. They could even name a new psychological disorder after her, the Alice syndrome. Not quite the fame she was probably aiming for, but in her twisted mind, it might appeal to her. Honestly, I no longer had any idea what was going on in Victoria's mind. After taking care of the morning routine and getting dressed in casual clothes, I removed the barricades from my door, unlocked it, and cautiously peered into the hallway. Everything seemed quiet, so I stepped out of my room and checked the other rooms upstairs to see if anyone else was around. As I approached the master bedroom, I had to stifle a laugh as I remembered the previous night. It looked like the lovebirds had left, and they'd done a good job cleaning up. If I didn't know any better, I wouldn't have been able to tell anyone had been in there. Well, you know what I mean. Wait, was I starting to sound bimboish again? Ugh. Arg. The upstairs was as empty as it was tidy, so I made my way downstairs. The kitchen was empty, so I took a moment to make some toast and coffee and sat down to enjoy my breakfast. The house was eerily silent. I was used to some kind of background noise, even if it was just music, but this complete quiet was unnerving. I found myself feeling jumpy. The sooner I found Victoria and got her into her new rubber room, the sooner I could move on with my life. Downstairs was just as clean and empty. You'd never guess a party had been held here the night before. It must have cost Victoria, and me, I supposed, quite a bit to have this much cleaning done in such a short time. The only areas left to check were the laundry and storage rooms in the basement. I also needed to investigate that strange new room. Who knew what was hidden in there? It was probably Victoria's personal dungeon of delights, but for her, not for her victims. Okay, I admit I was jumping ahead without really knowing what was in there, but I knew Victoria better than anyone. I was convinced she was capable of the most twisted, cruel things imaginable. With some hesitation, I made my way downstairs, but everything seemed to be in order. The laundry room had a load washing and another drying. Clearly, someone had been busy today, possibly the caterers from last night finishing up. The storage room was also clear, leaving only the new room left to explore. As I approached the doorway, I reached down into my cleavage to grab the key I had found earlier, only to notice that the door was unlocked and slightly ajar. Alarm bells went off in my head, and I carefully opened the door just enough to peek inside. It was quite dark, and I had to let my eyes adjust to the lower light coming through the crack when I saw two figures on the floor, tied up like Christmas turkeys. Holy crap! It was Angelique and Ethan. Without thinking, I rushed in to help, disregarding my own safety. I rolled Angelique over and began working on her restraints. Her eyes fluttered open, saw me, and relaxed in relief. I had just started on Ethan when I heard Victoria's cold voice from the doorway. That's enough, you stupid bitch. I've had enough of your interference. You've got 2 seconds to stop what you're doing and stand up very slowly, or I'll put a new eye right in the middle of your friend's forehead. I immediately froze and stood up as slowly as possible. There was no point in provoking a psycho, and maybe if I complied, she'd let one of us end her reign of madness. I turned to face her, but with the basement lights behind her, she was silhouetted in a cloak of light. In any other situation, it might have looked dramatic, but not right now. I noticed the gun she was holding, and she seemed perfectly comfortable with it. Yes, dear sweet Isabel, I'm quite proficient with this, Victoria said, her voice dripping with venom. So don't try anything stupid, or go ahead, do something stupid. I'd love an excuse to shoot you. You've ruined everything I've worked for these last 5 years. 5 long years of planning, sacrifice, and living with you for nothing. I don't understand how you always knew exactly what to say and do to cause maximum damage, but I'll find out tonight. Oh yes, tonight, I'll make sure you 3 tell me everything I need to know to get my revenge. I tried to speak, but she cut me off with a sharp wave of her gun. No, not yet, Isabel. I need to be sure that what you say is the truth, and there's only one way to make that happen. She pointed to a device behind me, and my heart sank as I recognized it from my history books on torture. She couldn't be serious. That thing was barbaric, cruel, and I thought it had been phased out long ago. "Red, come here and take this," Victoria commanded, handing Angelique an ampoule. "Put it into your young friend's neck." Angelique approached me, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Isabel. Please forgive me." I looked into her eyes and reassured her that she wasn't at fault, that she too was a victim of the crazed woman with the gun. Victoria snorted in laughter. "Looney Tunes, huh? Ha! That's rich. You won't be laughing soon, bitch." Angelique reached me, hesitated for a moment, then pressed the ampoule against my neck. The drugs flooded my system in a hot, nauseating rush. Within seconds, I was slipping into oblivion. How many times had I fallen into this haze over the past few days? It felt like a record as my body crumpled to the floor, surrendering to the darkness. A sound first, a scrabbling sound. Oh, just great. Rats or worse. It could be Victoria's. I tried to laugh, but two things stopped me. One, I could hardly breathe, and two, I was in a lot of pain. I hate pain. I have always done practically anything to avoid pain. Now it was everywhere and I couldn't escape it. My arms were painfully drawn into the small of my back and affixed there somehow. My legs were being pushed apart by a spreader bar and there was something alive up my female organs down there. I was wearing something that was squeezing the life out of me with never a second's respite. My mouth was being distended painfully by a very large something locked in and my tongue had no strength to even begin to push it out. I couldn't feel anything pushing up on my back, so I was either floating on some liquid or I was suspended. My bet was on suspension as I could not smell anything wet. Although how I could differentiate any smells in here was a small miracle as the place reeked of stale sweat, vomit, and things I couldn't put a name to except vile. Now, to add insult to injury, those lively things in me decided to get it together and I found myself getting excited by their ministrations. Try as I could to ignore the stimulation, I couldn't. Don't forget, this body of mine was brand new and I had not yet had the chance or the inclination to experiment with it yet. Now, however, those insidious devices were pulsating in the most delightful way and I found my pelvis moving up and down to the rhythm and beat set by those wonderful, delicious, little monsters as I felt a building up of something that threatened to carry me away to Never Never Land. The crescendo built and I could hear someone screaming and screaming, then I exploded. With a cacophony of strident yet beautiful lights and sounds, I felt a tsunami of pleasure reach out from my tummy and head in every direction, searing my nerve ends with a pleasure that I had never felt before as crescendo after crescendo crashed upon the shores of my new reality. This was the most intense pleasure I had ever experienced and I never wanted it to stop. I could still feel my body jerk and sway as little aftershocks rocked me. Holy guacamole! I was totally spent and yet at the same time I was revitalized and ready to go again. What a paradox! No wonder women were so hard to understand. Did you love that or what, little one? Oh shit! It was Victoria and I just knew that she had seen the whole thing. How would you like that to happen all the time, 24/7? I bet you would go insane in under 12 hours. But not to worry, you little bitch, pleasure is not the way I am sending you out into the cosmos. No! 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 You are going to suffer and suffer until you beg me to kill you. I won't though. I want you to feel pain till you die from it. I hate you so much I wish I had even more pain to give you, but this is the most painful device I have. Oh! I have nastier ones that could break your bones and rupture your skin but not allow you to bleed to death and get away from me that easy. Wait a minute. That is what I have you in. Ha! 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 I'll be back in just a few to start you out on your path to hell. I just have to take care of my other guests first. Now don't go away. Ha! 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 I think her maniacal laughter was bad enough, but she definitely had an agenda. She was totally gone. She had slipped over the edge and I do not think that any therapy in the world could help her now. Not that I wanted to really help her, you know what I mean? Then reality crashed in as I realized what she had last said. Other guests? I feared that would be Ethan and Angelique, whose only crime was trying to help me. Now who would save them, and me? I could hear her return, grunting with the effort to bring something or someone with her. Soon she came into my angle of vision and I saw her carrying what looked like Ethan all trussed up in what she had me all trussed up in. Laying him on the floor, I saw that he was still unconscious. She set about to attach cables from the ceiling to hooks set strategically about what he was wearing. Then she went to the wall and pressed a button and Ethan started to rise up until he was even with me. Using him as a rough guide, I surmised that we were about 5 feet off the floor. Then she left again and came back with Angelique trussed up pretty much the same as Ethan and I, and she strung her up too, and she was soon at the same altitude as we were. Ah. 3 rats caught in the trap. I just love it. By the time I am finished with your friends there, Isabel, they both will be crazier than bed bugs. I decided it would be much better and a lot more fun for me if I gave them pleasure till they drop, so that their howls of pleasure would be counterpoint to your screams of pain. You see, I am an artist, and you thought I could never do it, but I'll show you. I wasn't about to take the bait, even though I had no idea what she was talking about. I'd always encouraged her to try anything, and I would have supported her in anything she wanted to do, but she'd never shown an interest in art or anything related to it. So what was she going on about now? Fine, I admit it, I gave in. I started to squirm and make whatever noises I could, hoping to get her attention. Victoria noticed I was trying to say something, paused for a moment, and then reluctantly removed that awful device from my mouth. I worked my jaw to ease the tension before asking, Victoria, what's all this talk about art? You never mentioned you wanted to do anything artistic. You know I would have supported you no matter what, so what's going on? Victoria looked taken aback for a second, her mind clearly racing as she searched for an explanation. After a moment, her face softened, and she turned to me, tears welling in her eyes. Oh, my poor baby. What have I done? Please forgive Auntie Victoria. She started to approach me as if to untie me, but then a cold, calculating expression took over her face. Very good, Isabel. You almost got me there. You nearly appealed to my better nature, but that won't work again. I just killed her. She walked over to a table in the corner, opened a drawer, and returned with a device that looked horrendous, at least 8 inches long and 3 inches wide. She made some adjustments to it, then proceeded to shove it into my mouth. Even though I struggled, she easily forced it in, and something at the base made it stretch my lips painfully. She went back to the table, opened another drawer, and took out what looked like a Halloween mask. She pulled it over my head, securing it around the device in my mouth. I couldn't remove it now. She pulled the excess latex down my neck and fastened a belt-like device around it to hold the mask in place, locking it with a click. I was completely silenced and found it hard to breathe unless I took small, shallow breaths. God, what a monster! People don't even know about this kind of thing. Where did my ex-wife get her education in Dungeon 101? Okay children, you behave for Auntie Victoria and there will be ice cream after school. She went to the wall and touched 3 buttons and left to go upstairs. I looked around and could see that Ethan and Angelique were awake now, and by the wideness of their eyes just realizing their fate. Then Angelique started to squirm and I knew what Victoria had done. I couldn't even talk to them to calm them. This was diabolical. Now Ethan had a surprised look on his face and he started to squirm as well. One had to wonder what Victoria had done, but whatever it was, it obviously had devastating effects. Angelique was now thrashing around and swaying back and forth from the violence of her action. You could tell that she was trying not to react to the stimulus, but I knew that was impossible. Soon both of them were moaning, screaming, and undulating to the pulsations inside their bodies. I still wondered what the 3rd button was that Victoria had pushed before she left when I felt the beginning of the pleasure deep inside, and I moaned in futility as I realized what she had done. Time delay for me so that I would relax and allow that device to get even deeper in me before starting to drive me crazy. If I ever got out of this, she was chowder. Speaking of the devil, Victoria walked in, watched us squirm for a while, laughed manically, then walked over to a shower enclosure and extracted a hose that she attached to a tap over one of those huge laundry sinks and turned the water on, checked the temperature, then attached a sprayer to the hose and came over to me dragging the hose behind her. "You are very dirty, Isabel. Here, let me give you a shower." She proceeded to wet me down in lukewarm water, and the first thing I noticed besides getting wet was that the corset thingy I was wearing got quite loose. Well, who was I to look a gift horse in the mouth? Then Victoria came closer and whispered in my ear, "Can't have that too loose, can we, Isabel? That would ruin your look. Here, let me tighten that up for you, okay?" She reached down to something at my waist level and started to turn something that appeared to have a ratchet-like device as it clicked, clicked and clicked. Each click brought new tightness, and soon she had me gasping in pain, and I thought she was going to cut me in two, but she finally stopped. Looked at the pain in my eyes and said, "Good, pain, that is what I wanted to see. Okay, you smart-ass little bitch, let's see you get out of this one. Your guardian angel can't help you here." Ha! 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 She left the room and went back upstairs laughing all the way. I was in such pain. I have never felt such pain. I thought that my ribs would break for sure under this onslaught. That would pierce my lungs and I would drown in my own blood. At least it would be an out from this awful, incredible, searing pain. I knew that my insides that could were rearranging themselves and what bones could bend were bending inward. What this would do to my internal organs I didn't have a clue, and honestly at this point I didn't care. I was just trying to get away from the pain. Suddenly Victoria was there again. "I couldn't hear your screams." "That will never do. I went to a lot of expense to hear your screams." She undid the belt around my throat, pulled the latex hood off of my head and removed the gag viscously from my mouth. "I think I lost a tooth." I screamed at her a long litany of invective that I wasn't even aware that I knew. She smiled at me, patted my cheek, and left to go upstairs again. Now I had an outlet for my pain, and I am sure I filled the house with my screams. I found out that the corset was shrinking as it dried as well, and there was nothing I could do but scream. This went beyond pain, and I wondered why I wasn't allowed to lose consciousness to get at least a few minutes respite from the agony. Then I remembered a tidbit of information from some past instructor saying in instances of extreme pain and or discomfort the human brain will not allow itself to turn off as long as there is the threat of bodily harm that a wide-awake person would be able to move away from. Oh, just lovely. My brain wanted me to move away from what was killing me and was keeping awake to do that, but I was not going anywhere because of the way I was trussed up. How diabolical. Soon though my ribs will puncture my lungs and then I will be allowed to die. Ha! Victoria, I was going to escape from you yet. I wasn't sure how much the corset shrunk, but it got to the point where the pain reached a plateau and I actually got used to it. Holy shit! Wasn't the human body incredible? I was still in more pain than I thought was possible, but I could cope. Since I couldn't move, I was in no danger of causing any secondary injuries, so I just hung in there. Ha! My sense of humor was still there. It had taken a beating, but it was still there. Both of my fellow victims had passed out quite some time ago, and I was willing to bet that intimacy would have a very low priority for them for some time to come. It was then that I heard the front door bell. Then some shouting and scuffling, then a wail of such despair that it brought tears to my eyes. Then silence. I decided to take the chance and yell for help. I knew that I would break something, but it may be our only chance. Taking a slow breath in as much as I could, I screamed. I knew that my screams would win me a hog-calling contest now, and had no doubt that whoever was upstairs would hear it. I also felt many little things in me break, and the resulting new pain caused me to sob. Oh, Isabel, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen. You will be rewarded for your selflessness. Ethan and I will always owe you for the rest of our lives, the lives you've just saved through your pain. We can never truly repay you, but we will try. All I could do was smile at Angelique as tears streamed down my face. Then, the most incredible sound filled the air, footsteps pounding down the stairs as a crowd rushed to my scream. Hours later, we were free from those torturous devices, and all other restraints had been removed from our bodies. I was lying on a gurney with N4 hooked up, delivering painkillers and nutrients to help my body recover. I was wrapped up like a mummy, being transported to the hospital for what I knew would be a long stay, according to the paramedics. I overheard several conversations about the miracle that had allowed me to survive what I had endured. Whoever was looking out for me must have really loved their job, because I was probably quite a handful. I arrived at the hospital, and before I could even be fully checked in, I was out cold, like a light that had been blown out. If you appreciated this story and wish to show your support, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel.